Hello and welcome to my podcast, A Gaymer Meets, where I, a gay gamer, interview the voice actors behind your favourite games and actors behind your favourite TV series and films. And today I'm joined by the wonderful Tommie Earl Jenkins. So, first of all, thank you for joining me.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to do an interview. It's an honour, really, to be talking to you. The most simple question I can start with is, how are you today?
I'm great, thank you. I'm in LA, where the last week and a half has been incredibly hot and sunny and wonderful. And in other parts of the world, it's freezing and snowing.
Yes.
So I consider myself very lucky. Although we do have a little bit of rain today, but it's LA. It's very rare. So sometimes it's nice to get that.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, in the UK, we just have lots of rain.
Yeah, always. Because I kind of work back and forth in the UK. I lived there for nearly 30 years, so it's like it's my second home. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, there you go. Where did you live?
Oh my gosh, all over. I live Southwest London in Tooting. I've lived East London, Mile End. I've lived Southwest London, all over North London. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good. London's all right. I find it a little bit too busy for me, but I have
do
been
you?
there a couple of times. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where are you at?
I'm based in South Wales, but I don't have much of a Welsh accent. I know that much.
No, I hear a little bit.
Oh, that's good then.
A little bit.
Okay. So I am aware that you are a theatre nerd, and that is where we start. I do a little bit of theatre myself. I have performed with the local amateur dramatic society, and our recent show was The Wizard of Oz, and I got to be the lion, which was great.
Nice.
So with your theatre and your dancing background, how does that influence you for mocap performances?
Interesting. Because I think that theater and mocap are very, very similar in a lot of ways. Because we, obviously with theater, we work on the stage, we work with stage direction, we work on physicality and things like that. And mocap is pretty much the same thing. The only difference I find with that is that you are in one costume, which is a mocap suit with all the dots and on your face and everything for them to scan or whatever, and very few props. So it's almost like improvising without having certain things there. A lot of things you have to really imagine that are around you. You know, if you're set in a snow blizzard or a rain hurricane or a tornado, you kind of have to create that physicality of being in that because you don't have it. Obviously, that stuff is added later. But, in things like theater, you've got everything. You've got the set, you've got the costumes, you've got the lights, you have everything. But the action is still the same. You still work on the premise that this is the story, this is the dialogue, this is the story that we're telling. So I think in that sense they are very similar, and you're working in a big space, so it is very much like walking across the stage. It's a sound stage essentially. So
Yeah.
so it is very it's very close. It's the probably thing that's probably closest to doing theater, I think, in a way. But yeah, so that is pretty much the connection that I feel from those two mediums.
Well, that's fantastic. I've heard that the space is known as the volume, and is there a particular reason why it's called the volume, or is it just an industry slang term that just gets used multiple times?
The volume, in a sense, funny enough, it's interesting because the volume was a term that I only heard recently on a job that I was working on, where the volume was something they'd used before, and it was being on a soundstage, but I think a lot of stuff was like a blue screen, green screened, a lot of projectional type stuff that happens in that space, if I'm correct. and I could tell you what the project was, but it's a little top secret at the moment until it comes out. But that's something to look forward to. But yes, it is the space. So I don't know if it's an actual. I think it is a term for the specific work that they're doing in that particular environment or that technique or whatever. So yeah, it was a new one to me because I had never worked in that respect. I just kind of, we're on the sound stage, we're doing what we do, and that's kind of all I really kind of been privy to. So yeah, I don't have a full explanation for you on the volume, but I have heard of it and I am aware of it. Yeah.
At least you've heard of it, and you're not looking at me like, what?
Oh God, no, it exists. It does exist.
Yeah, Matt told me about that. He was like, ask about the volume, and I was like,
the
okay.
volume. Yeah. Matt probably knows about the volume more than I do, actually.
Well, probably because he's had lots of interviews.
Right.
Since we're on the discussion of mocap, can you talk to us about your first time on a mocap stage, as in your first project regarding mocap?
Yeah. Well, my first project on motion capture was Death Stranding. And that was my first venture into that area. And I always wanted to do it, because a lot of films use it now. Video games obviously use it quite a lot. In certainly the cutscenes and telling the story and things like that. It was an interesting process for me because it was new, and as much as I had been versed in doing video games and voicing characters and things like that, going into my first mocap was interesting. But one thing they said to me was like, with your theater background, this will probably be really kind of second nature to you because it is physical, it is acting out, it is working with people, so it is very much like being on stage and blocking things out. It's all physical the way that you would kind of normally do it in theater. But it was a wonderful experience. And I'm very, very happy and I look forward to doing more of it in the future.
Well, that's good. I am aware that mocap have moved from the ping pong balls to the dots, but are the suits still ping pong balls, or are they still
yeah.
dots?
So the suits actually still have those. They're not quite ping pong, but they're very small little baubles on your costume, and they place them in various areas, so they're removable and they attach with Velcro, so that they can place them wherever they need to put, in your elbows and kind of the joints and bending areas and things like that. And then obviously the dots that go on your face is for something else for them to attract, I suppose, when it comes to scanning and things like that and facial expression, because you have a helmet on and then you've got like here what looks like a huge microphone, and also a camera. So that camera there picks up all of your facial expressions. So
I've seen the behind the scenes of Ashley Johnson in The Last of Us Part 2 with the helmet and the thing, and she said it was quite difficult because obviously Ellie and Dina have a kissing scene, and her and Shannon couldn't do it with the big camera here. So they said, look, can we just take this off so we can actually do it better? Right. So it's good that you can, take the helmet off and still get captured and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And those things do come into play where they can cause a little bit of an issue. I had that once with Norman in Death Stranding, Norman Reedus, and we had a moment where we were very close, and we both had it was like sort of like deer locking antlers. But you get used to it, and certain things like for intimate scenes like that, I'm sure it's very difficult. So in order to do those things, yes, they can be removed and stuff or whatever because you're still being captured and filmed and stuff. So.
That's good. Now we're talking about Death Stranding. I will admit I haven't played it. I'm very sorry. It's on my to-do list. But I am aware that your character's Die Hardman. So how does the character, or what makes the character resonate to fans and to gamers and to you as the actor?
Die Hardman. Listen, I think that Die Hardman, what people kind of resonate with him is, in one respect, he is a very military man. He's very straight to the point. He's very non-expressive a lot, especially in the first game, and through the majority. He's, he can be considered like a quest giver in some respects, but he stays in contact with our lead player, Sam Bridges, which is played by Norman Reedus, sort of delivering orders and missions for him to take on. Also, as a side partner, I think he cares very much about him. But I think where his turning point is, and you kind of have to get through most of the game to find the human aspect of him, because he can come across as being very non-emotional throughout. Mm-hmm. And for him, that's just his process. And then towards the end of the game, for those who haven't played, which I won't give too much away about, it is very much his kind of reckoning. And I think it's the first time that people get a chance to see. And it kind of comes in a way, I think, that people are kind of blown away, both emotionally and kind of, oh, we didn't know this about this character. Mm-hmm. So a lot gets revealed about him. And then obviously, that sort of ties the story up a little bit. In terms of who he is and what he does. But I think people resonate with him because he is, for those people who like that type of stoic character, he is that. He's very interesting because he wears a mask for the majority of the game. And then all of that is revealed. He then later becomes someone else. And like I said, I'm trying to explain this without giving it so that when you do play it, you're not too spoiled by it. So, but people know who recognize him purely from his mask and his costume, which I love. I think he looks awesome.
So he's kind of an iconic character anyway, then.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And for me to be able to join the Hideo Kojima universe and take on a character that people know and will recognize, it's become sort of, I'm a part of that. It's like being part of Marvel. In a way, you play a character that is very, very, very prominent, and people will remember for sure. Yeah.
In respect to the character, how did you get into the mindset of being a stoic military character? Because you don't come across as a stoic person. You come across as very warm and friendly.
I am extremely warm and friendly. And I think with that particular character, you get it's like anything as actors, we get a breakdown of what a character is. And this character was a military man, and he was very much close as the right hand of I would say, I suppose, the president, and so therefore has to carry himself in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And most military men are trained, I believe, not to let your emotions get involved with your journey and what your work entails. You kind of have to be disconnected from that aspect. And so I think, like with any character, you take those things on board, and there has to be an element, an air about the character that lets you know he's in control of what he's doing. Two, he's no nonsense type person. Doesn't mean he has to be mean or anything like that. It just means he's impenetrable. Do you know what I mean? There's just something about him. It's like he's always got this armor. He's always got this wall. And I think his real purpose and main purpose is to get the job done.
Yeah.
At whatever the cost.
Did you find it difficult to, as you said, you have to remove your own emotions for this character? Did you find that easy or hard, or?
I think it was relatively easy until, like I said, especially for the first X amount of hours of the game. I think the way the story is structured, the way it's written, the way this character gets developed really is kind of on the paper. But it was great for me to find a way to make him part of me, but yet still be the character. There are essences of me that I can sort of incorporate into it. But for the most part, I think the character is all there on the paper. But it was challenging. It was very challenging because he is completely opposite to who I am. But then I also tend to play roles like that. I play, detectives and military men, colonels and generals in movies or whatever, and those things seem to fit in my wheelhouse. And although they aren't dissimilar to me in some ways, but they're also still very different to me. Like you said, I'm a jovial person. I love to laugh. I'm warm-hearted, and these things I know about myself. But when it comes to acting, I think we take on the persona of that character as best we can, because the one thing we need to do is we have to think about, well, where is this person placed? Where are they from? What is their background? What is their education? What is, all the things that make them who they are? And those things, as the actor, we have to learn about that character, even if we have to make them up for ourselves. The audience doesn't necessarily have to know everything about that, but as the actor, we find things to help us create this character. So, that will, where a person is from could depict on how I speak, what upbringing, what educational background will determine how that person moves, or so it is always fun to try and peel the layers off and get to the root of the character. But yeah, it's always a process.
You mentioned that you do a lot of militaristic roles. Do you choose those roles, or do you feel like you get typecast into them because you've done them before, or
I think it may be a little bit of both in some respects. I think at the end of the day, for me as an actor and where I am career-wise, I think what tends to happen is, an agent submits you for a project that's coming up because there's a role that might fit your brief. Say they're looking for someone in this particular age bracket who is a general or a colonel in the army and needs to have some gravitas or a little bit of weight. They want someone with a certain type of presence. And so all those things come into play when your agent submits you for the project. And if the casting department likes the look of you and sees that your resume matches certain characters, or they'll send you a small script, what we call sides, for you to put on tape and for you to see what you can bring to the character. And at the end of the day, I think that's where it all gets decided. It's what you present in the tape, and if it's the character that they want and see you as, then that would be you either book the job or you go to producers and they decide it's between you and another person, and the other person could get it for any myriad of reasons. Not necessarily, we don't lose out jobs necessarily, I think, because we weren't good on the tape. It's just that maybe someone else had a certain look that they were going for. Maybe the person had, a shaved head or blue eyes, or, were a little thinner or a little broader or whatever. So it's all of those things that you get to a certain point as the actor, and it's out of your control. You get the tape, you get the brief, you send it in, you wait to hear. Is basically the process for us. And if we get it, great. If we don't, we move on to the next one.
So it's kind of like applying for jobs for us civilians, and I say civilians because you know what I mean, like people like me trying to apply for jobs.
That's right. Every day. It is exactly that. You go for a job interview hoping that you get it, and maybe it's between you and two other people, or you and one other person, and the other person gets it for whatever reason. And we never necessarily know why the other person got it over you. And it's not for us to really be concerned about. The point is that the powers that be make that final decision based off of whatever that is. And the best thing for us as the actor to do is do the audition, send the tape in. If your team or your reps hear back and with any kind of feedback and say they want to see you again, sometimes they ask you to retape and give you some direction, or they'll call you into the room and maybe direct you personally or Zoom with you, and the director may decide, I love what you did on the tape, but I want to try something different. Because I like what you bring to it. I just want to see. And sometimes they just want to be able to see if an actor can actually take direction. Because sometimes people will send in a tape, and that's the performance that they are given. And a director wants to be able to change up something on the day and the moment, to say, listen, maybe not give it to, let's try that a little less angry. Let's try that a little bit more, subtle, and try and come from a different. And they want to be able to see that an actor can take on those directions and still move forward. So there's nothing worse than, having a person who sends in a wonderful tape, but then they can't do anything other than what they've sent in.
Yeah.
So it's a puzzle. It is a puzzle. And a lot of times they want the actor to be able to fit in with the rest of the people that they've cast. So maybe the look of a person or the ethnicity of a person, physicality or personality, any traits, they want to be able to fit this puzzle for an ensemble of people that they're putting together to tell a story. So, like I said, at the end of the day, we get the breakdown, we do the tape, we send it in, and after that, we wait.
Yeah, I get that. I was going to try and make my own film without a budget and with no experience in making films, but I reached out to this guy who was a videographer, like does camera work and stuff. And obviously my film unfortunately didn't get made because I don't have a budget, but he sent me messages to try and get me involved in his films. Unfortunately, they're in Swansea. But he sent me a bunch of scripts, and one of them was called Soldiers. So he was looking for someone to be a soldier, really. And I delivered this interview, and then he said, "This is fantastic. Can you cry on camera?" So then I had to learn, and I was surprisingly quite good at it. And I think it helped because I'd only had like 2 hours sleep, and I was sick with COVID. And I was just like, and I did the performance. I've still got videos of it.
Wow.
And I just, walked into my bedroom because I didn't know where else to do. And I'm dressed up in cosplay because it's the closest thing I have to military.
Right.
And I just sit there and I'm just weeping on the phone, and I just sent it and I went, I hope this is good. I'm sick and I'm really tired. I'm going to sleep now. But he said it was a fantastic performance, and he actually got in touch with me recently, and he said he wanted to have me join like a touring theatre group in the summer, but the problem with that is that it would be touring all over the UK. And I've got a cat, and I would have had to have sorted out cat sitting, and obviously most of it's in Swansea, so I couldn't have get down there. But it was a fun experience to be able to cry on camera because I'd never done that before. So
Sure. Yeah, that is an interesting one because some people find it very difficult to do. And I think there is a process because everyone has a different process in how they reach these emotional barriers, I suppose. And it's about, how you choose to tap into that emotion, whether you bring your personal life into it or whether you bring a situation that you can recall that makes you emotional to get into it. And some people just find it that their bodies can react in a certain way because the brain doesn't know any different. Do you know what I mean? It's like the brain, if you tell the brain you're sad, it starts to create that feeling, and then therefore heightens it. And then, sometimes people can the tears will just flow. I've had to have moments where I've had to have a big breakdown.
It's a very big skill, isn't it? I until I did that moment, I didn't actually realize I could do it because I see films where people are crying. I'm like, that must be so hard to cry on camera. And then I put my, I only did it on my phone, put it down with the recording, and I just sat there. And I don't even know what I was thinking of. Probably something sad,
right?
And then I just cried the whole thing. And then afterwards, I was so drained by it because
it is draining. It's absolutely emotionally draining to go through that process because the body gets exhausted from it. It's like when you cry naturally over a situation, the loss of a loved one or a pet or anything that's tragic that really affects you, and it takes you on that place, and sometimes you're inconsolable, and it absolutely, the body just becomes absolutely drained from it.
I mean, like I said, it didn't help that I was sick with COVID and I had 2 hours sleep, but I sent him that and I went, I'm now going to sleep because I'm ill and I'm exhausted. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. But it was an experience to say.
Yeah.
But I think it was good that even though the film the TV series hasn't been made yet because I think it's just logistics wise, but the fact that he thought I was good enough to reach out to me again. I thought, well, this is, pretty
Yeah.
good. And for someone like me I don't have experience in television and film. My experience is primary school and secondary school performances and my
Sure.
local drama group. But I've done
Sure.
things like Sweeney Todd, Aladdin, Of
Right.
Mice and Men. So I've done big performances, especially
Yeah.
Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.
But compare that to like film, it's a very small
Sure.
production, really.
Sure. But as the actor, you're still working through the same sort of process.
Hmm.
You're doing a character, you're working on it, you're learning the lines, you're getting emotionally involved in the story. So that process is still always going to be the same, whether it's TV, film, or television, video game, or motion capture, any of that stuff. It still kind of runs in the same aspect. As actors, we still start from our baseline,
Hmm.
telling the story,
Yeah.
approaching it from a truthful place. Yeah.
I have another question regarding mocap before I move on to a different category. Um, so, as you are a motion capture performer and I am a gamer, I am aware that we have something known as the T pose. Um, do you still find it ridiculous to do, or is it more of a second nature thing? However often you have to stop and do the T pose to capture the performance.
It's at the end of every kind of scene that we do, um, when we finish, and it's just it's like it's a stop and start kind of thing. It's just part of the process.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't even think about it. I really, and then when they shout T-pose or whatever at the end of the scene, we're just there, and then we're out.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like the finality. It's kind of like a point of finish, I suppose. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just part of it. It's just
Yeah.
it's
I
like
can
hitting the play
imagine.
or the stop on the record button.
Yeah. I can imagine like the first time you did it, you were like, why do I have to stand there like this? What does this
Yeah, yeah,
do?
yeah.
And I know it because like I've seen it in glitches, and I love glitches in games. It's the best thing ever. I remember I was playing The Last of Us Part Two,
Yeah.
and when Abby's supposed to take on and fight the brute Seraphite, the Seraphite just stood there in an A pose and was just glitched for the whole thing. And I was like, well, that just made my fight easier because she didn't swing back at me. So I
Yeah.
was like, oh, there you go. But yeah.
That's
Was it
funny.
the first time you did it? Was it a bit bizarre to do, or did you just go, oh, okay, that's what we do now?
Well, no, yeah, I think you just at the, because Death Stranding was my first motion
Hmm.
capture, and it was part of the learning process of it at the same time, and also I'm just going to do what you tell me to do.
Yeah.
You know what you do. You guys do this all the time. I'm learning, and
Yeah. Just
in the
point me
process.
and tell me where to stand, and I'll go do it.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. Basically, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad it's second nature and it's not still one of those like bizarre things you do.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely it has a purpose. They wouldn't do it
Mhm.
if there wasn't a purpose behind it. Do you know what I
So,
mean? So,
apart from to mark the end of a scene and I think they say to clear the gate, I believe that's the term because I've seen some behind the scenes things, could be
mm,
wrong.
mm.
But what is the purpose of the T-pose other than just to end the scene? Is that the whole purpose of it?
I honestly, I think it is. I think it is just to kind of get a finality in sense that maybe it's almost like slating in a way,
Hmm.
you know. Um, but I honestly, I do it and I don't even think about it, because for me, it's not the performance, but it is a point of reference, I suppose, in some ways,
Yeah.
and things like that. So it's funny. I've never really kind of. It's never been something where I've just kind of been. I go home thinking about why do we do that? Why is it?
You'll have to do that next time you go into mocap. Be like, tell me, why do we actually do
Again,
the T-pose? I'll write it down.
I'll write it down and give you the full lowdown. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so moving on to something. Sorry, my cat is scratching. Loki, that's my shelf. Thank you. Sorry. Um, something I have seen and which I've thoroughly enjoyed, Wednesday. And your role as the mayor. We love the mayor. I love Wednesday.
Yeah.
I binged the first season. Obviously, waited for the second season when that comes out. Can you tell us, is there going to be a third season?
I believe there is.
Ooh,
I believe.
exciting.
I don't want to be speaking out of turn because, but I do believe there's a third season.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
very exciting because
Yeah.
it's I really thoroughly enjoyed. I watched Adam's Family Values, and I really thoroughly enjoyed that. And then
Yeah.
obviously when we first saw the trailer of Wednesday, I was like, okay, this is a lot different to the Adams Family that I know, and obviously I've seen the
Sure.
animation.
Yeah.
And then I watched the whole the whole first season. I thought this is very, very good, and I
Yeah.
was not expecting it to be as good as it was
Sure.
because I know the Adams Family as a whole. I wasn't
Yes.
expecting to follow Wednesday,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's fantastic. Jenna's great. Everyone's great.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see like Gwendolyn because I know her from Game of
From Game of
Thrones. So to
Thrones.
go
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Game
Yeah.
of Thrones to Wednesday,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a different. But how do you find working on Wednesday?
I absolutely had one of the best times working on the show. You know, we filmed in Romania in the
Wow.
first season, yeah. But they built an entire town, you know, Jericho, in which I
Mm,
was the mayor of. And the sets were amazing. The backlot of where we were working, just incredible work. The cast and crew, the entire team on that was amazing.
yeah.
And you know, it was iconic to be working with Tim Burton, you know,
Oh yeah.
as a
I
director.
love his work. Like,
Yeah, you
one of
know,
my
and
one of my
just
favorite films is The Corpse Bride.
okay, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
Day Before Christmas. You gotta love
yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah. So all of that, and then you know, we had Danny Elfman who does all the music, who's done
Mm,
most of the stuff that Tim Burton's done. A lot of the, you know, the Nightmare Before Christmas and Corpse's Bride, all that sort of stuff, and you know, iconic musically. And so it was a wonderful experience. I loved the character. I loved
yeah.
you know, the relationships that I had with other characters in it. You know, and unfortunately, you know, he met his demise. You know,
Mm,
but you never know. I mean, I would love, you know, maybe his twin brother comes back into the scene, or maybe he comes back as a ghost or something. I don't know, but
yeah.
you know, whatever the case may be, I enjoyed that the experience of working on that. The show was a massive hit. I think it was like number one in like 80 something countries, you know. So it was crazy,
Yeah.
absolutely crazy, crazy.
It's I think it's like, or it was number one in the UK for a bit, I think. I don't know whether it
Yeah.
still is. I haven't really checked the stats, but I
Yeah.
thought it was like, oh, it was in the top
Oh yeah.
10 or something TV
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
series. It
for
was
sure.
very,
And
very good.
even the second series, you know, this which was out now, was also
Yeah.
really good. The story changes, you know,
Uh-huh.
and I just think it was just great to see what happens with Wednesday and some of the other
Mhm.
characters, and the introduction of new characters who've come in.
Yes.
You know, so it was brilliant.
I think also for me, when me and my partner Tom watched season two, both of us went, whoa, they've all grown up. Because you look at them in season one, and it's like Eugene, and I was like, who's that? And he's like, that's Eugene. And I was like, no, it's not you. And then I looked at them, and I was like, oh, they have
Yeah.
grown up really
Hey,
quickly.
isn't
And
it
you don't
crazy?
realize because there's
Yeah.
such a gap that when
And
they come
even
back, you're like, oh, they've actually
yeah,
grown up now, and it's
yeah,
it's
even
amazing.
Pugsley. Pugsley looks,
Yeah,
yes, they've all grown up, and it's amazing just from one season to the next.
yeah,
I mean, and it's not that much, you know, it's less than a year, I think, or maybe even at least a year
yeah.
between, you know, but to see how much people have grown.
I saw Eugene is very tall,
Yeah,
so
I know it's
yeah.
crazy. The kids have all grown up.
And it was, can they all stop growing, please?
Yeah.
So regarding Wednesday, what are the differences between working motion capture, other than the suit, and TV, and what's the differences for you?
Uh, the differences between, I think we kind of touched on it a little bit before, but maybe in terms of television and film versus mocap is, like I said, you just have the physicality of everything. You walk on a set and, you are in an office or you are in a town. You're walking down the street of everything is tangible.
Yeah.
In a TV and film, it's all there for you, all for the taking. It's like living your actual life, walking through doors of a house and being in the living room or cooking, dinner or something on the stove. All of that is there. Motion capture, even if you were to, it would be like, take, for instance, I suppose something like The Last of Us, the video game versus the TV series, and so you can see someone did something on Instagram, and I think I saw side-by-side scenes from the video game as well as the TV show. So you could see how it was working in motion capture, but you can also look around motion capture and see that they're on a soundstage doing the same scene, but that scene in television is depicted very differently. The emotions in the scene is almost identical except for the environment in which they're working in.
So you could almost say that a stage set is similar to a TV and film set, and then you could say that, or you could argue that motion capture is more like, basically like, when you got green screen and everything gets added post and you're at. So would you compare like mocap to green screen and TV to theatre?
Yeah. TV and film is closer to the theater than mocap. The only difference is, like I said, you're wearing a suit. You're not wearing a costume in motion capture. Yeah. So you don't. And for us as actors in TV and film, a costume absolutely enhances your performance because it is putting on a layer of the character. Do you know what I mean? It helps you find out who you are, what you're doing. It is part of the process. Whereas you don't have costumes in motion capture. You have to imagine if you're a king, that you have to imagine that you're in a robe and you've got a crown on your head and all of those things. Do you know what I mean? And carry that air about you. Whereas, on TV and film, they will give you that. You've got a throne to sit on. You've got all these things. You've got a sword. You got all of that. Whereas in motion capture, we only get bits and pieces. If you have to have a gun or a sword, they'll give you a stick. Do you know what I mean? And that stick, or a fake plastic gun or something that represents it. So all those things can be added later. It is something quite magical in what happens in motion capture and in video games. In a lot of ways. I mean, we make magic just being in the industry anyway, between film and television and theater and motion capture video games. We all create magic. It's an art form in everything that we do. But, there is something really quite magical about stepping onto a soundstage in a motion capture suit, delivering, a dramatic scene or a funny scene or an action scene, knowing that there is, I'm having a sword fight on a cliff, and I'm about to fall over, hundreds of feet down into the water or something, and you don't have that. And so all that stuff gets added. And I know in films these days, a lot of that also happens, where you're on a set and you've got a huge green screen and they've built a cliff and you're having a sword fight. And at least you do fall off onto a crash mat probably, but all this little added extra stuff, technology allows us to add this extra layer on and create these environments that people get so drawn into, and technology is constantly evolving where, things are just, you're even more mesmerized by what's happening. So, I mean, I just think it's all, we create magic. Is what we do.
Oh yeah, I do think that. You mentioned that how your theatre background helped you with the mocap. Now, the question I would like to ask is probably something similar to what I've asked before, but when you have your mocap and you have to imagine the environment, do you find that more difficult than if you have the props and the set, or do you automatically can you visualize it?
Yes, I think I find it more challenging I find it incredibly challenging doing motion capture because I don't have a lot of things down. I mean, I have to rely on my technique or my ability to put myself in a particular environment that is not created for me. I have to create it myself, and also make it believable when it is processed, and when they add all the extra added layers on. I think you have to. What I've learned is, as the actor in motion capture, and this is not to take away from any other form of acting, whether it's theater, TV, or film. What I'm saying is that I think it's harder in motion capture that people don't understand is that you do have to work a little harder. Yes, you're still acting, but you have a lot of things against you. You don't have the costume. You don't have the sets. You don't have all the actual props to look at and feel and touch, and looking at an actual blade of a sword, or the actual down the barrel of a gun, or hopping on a bike and really feeling the handlebars or the pedals, and how you don't have that. You have to create those things. Yes, we can give you things that look like a motorcycle and put you on it, and then we'll move it and rock it, and then we'll create everything else after that. So as the actor, you have to dig so much deeper, because it has to be convincing enough that when it is, all the other elements are layered on top of it, that it still lives, and doesn't
big
get
amount
lost.
of imagination then, really.
A great amount of imagination, for sure. For sure. Sorry about the noise. I think they're doing like a fire testing in my building.
That's okay. I thought it was my end for some reason.
No.
I was going to say, you talked about technology evolving, and that now draws me into my question of AI and its use. I am aware a lot of people hate AI, a lot of people like AI. I will admit I do use it. I mostly use it to generate stories between me and the AI. I don't publish them anywhere because but it keeps me writing.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on AI? And I think there's an AI character called Tilly who's created from AI and is using people's voices to train herself. What's your thoughts on that?
So my thing with AI is I think it is an absolute incredible tool to be able to have and to use. And when AI is used, in my idea, in the right way, it is wonderful for everyone. The possibilities and the things that you can do with AI these days is incredible and also scary. Because it can work for you and it can also work against you. I think, and as far as our industry is concerned, I think that we often we're more concerned about AI replacing human actors, or the fact that companies want to use AI to cut costs in paying actors and things like that. That's where I draw the line, because we have trained all our lives to do what we do, and we only need to look around what's happening in the world. You go to the airport, or you go to the grocery store, and there are less people working in these places, because now everything's self-handled. It's either self-checkout or check your own bags in when you get to the airport kind of situation, or it basically is eliminating jobs for people, because things are now working in a different way. And I think it's great when it's efficient and it moves things along, and that's great. But I think we just have to be careful about how it's used, because I think it can be a very dangerous tool. And I don't think people really saw that coming. I think, and when videos are being made that you now have to look at and go, is that real?
Yeah,
I have to question.
I think that's what a lot of people are maybe afraid of is that they don't know what's real anymore. And because
Correct.
you have, you've got your deep fake technology as well. And I think
Sure.
a lot of people don't know what's real and they're like, oh, that's AI. Even if it's actually not AI, they're very
Right.
quick to label it as AI. And
Sure. 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 Sure.
it's
I
blurred the
mean,
boundaries now.
yeah, and there's certain things you can look at and go, that's got to be definitely AI. But the fact that you actually have to question your own self about whether it is or not is where I think we kind of go, oh, now that's a worry,
Yeah.
because now you can, there are famous people who have been, put in AI saying certain things that they never actually said,
Yeah.
and we're living in a world now where our country certainly is, divided, and I think the whole world is in some ways kind of off kilter. We're off balance right
Yeah.
now, and so everything matters. Everything matters a great deal. And I think we just have to be very careful, and we've got to be very conscious of what we put out there,
Yeah.
you know.
I completely understand that.
So, and like I said, these are times where, you see something and you have to question it because, did that person say that? Oh, and it's so quick and people jump on it very quickly. People are very, susceptible to accepting what they see as real,
Hmm.
and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, but people are very quick to kind of, go, oh, I'm passing this on because I just saw this and this is crazy. I can't believe they said this. And then they find out, well, that wasn't real. That was
Hmm.
actually AI. And they're like,
Yeah.
what? And so it is, you kind of have to do your research. If so,
Yeah.
if you find yourself questioning something that you see, don't pass it on unless you know for sure that it is something that is true. Do your own research. It's like I say to everyone, if you have to worry about something, be your own private investigator. Find
Yeah.
out first. Find out the source from where something came before sharing it and hopping on the bandwagon
Hmm.
with something. Find out the truth for sure.
Yeah. I completely understand that. Um, uh, have you got any questions for me while I look at my list of
Look at your
things?
look at your list. Your podcast now is what's it called?
A Gamer Meets.
A Gamer Meets. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Don't know
and
why
how
that
did
zoomed in then.
yeah, and why and how did you get into that, and why did you uh feel the need to do that?
We can actually thank Matt Horn for that
Okay.
because he told me about his podcast and he said, I think you've got a really good voice for like, interviewing people. I've been told I've got a good voice, good Tom, but I mean, my first interview was with Kieran Strange
Okay.
and he said I've got a good pitch and a good timbre and it's, good to listen to.
Yeah.
We ended up having a 2 hour Zoom call, which was great.
Yeah.
And you know, Matt suggested that I interview some people, see what it was like, and that's how we managed to have this interview. So thank you, Matt.
Okay.
Um, a Gamer Meets, well, because his is called Matt Horn Meets, so I wanted something similar that was not copying,
Sure.
and because I'm a gamer and well, gay gamer, so that's
Yeah.
basically it. And
Mm.
I thought it would be a good chance to um basically get to know people, to speak to VAs and stuff, to
Hmm.
expand my horizon, and because I thought it would be a good chance maybe to speak to LGBT actors and see how it's like in the industry for them. I
Sure.
mean, I only play games, but when I see performances like The Last of Us, when I see that and I feel it's very authentic, then, I told Ashley Johnson when I met her at London Comic Con that I thought her performance of Ellie was fantastic, and she made me understand a bit more about myself, which was great, I think. But
Yeah.
that's just basically where it came from,
Yeah, I
really.
think it's great. I think it's great. I think the title's great, and I think when you have something that obviously connects to
Hmm.
you, excuse me, I think you have found a good play on the words in terms of how
Yeah.
it works for you, and I find it very. I was intrigued. So
Oh, thank you
thank you
very
for
much.
reaching out. I think it works brilliantly.
Yeah. I talked to Matt and he's like, I think you'll be good at this person, good at this person. He was like, oh, do you want to speak to Tommie Earl Jenkins? And I went, yeah. Like I literally, he mentioned that and I was like, it's the guy from Wednesday. We like him. Let's go talk. So
Well, it's an
yeah.
absolute pleasure. It's a
Well,
pleasure.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
I have a sort of question that's I don't it's more of a bullet pointed question. It just says I just wrote diversity changes across mediums, and I don't know where I was going with that one. I don't know whether it was regarding possibly LGBT diversity or having more people of color in main characters. I don't know what is going
Well,
with
I
that.
think, just touching on, I suppose, the diversity in general, I just think that there's always room to have it, and I don't think it has anything to do with being, I suppose, what we had over here for a while called a DEI hire, kind of situation. And I think listen, I think there is room for everyone. I
Yeah.
don't care if you're gay, trans, straight, black, gray, green, or blue. There's always something for everyone. I think it's allowing the space to be open and
Yeah.
everyone having the fair shot. I don't think it's necessarily something that should be a closed gate that only, white actors are open to, or just black actors. I think what it's about is giving people the fair shot. Can the character be Asian? Can the character be black? Can it be,
Yeah.
or can it be white? The possibilities are there. I mean, I think, it runs a fine line because I think, we have stories that are being told now with, that have fan base, especially stories of books, and, we're taking the opportunity to open some of these characters up to a different ethnicity than maybe what they were in the book,
Yeah.
And to me, at the end of the day, none of that bothers me. I think if you find someone who can interpret the character, let's not worry about the ethnicity of a fantasy character
Yeah.
or whatever. Do you know what I mean? If the whole point is telling the story, and if the story is still being told and people are still being moved by what they know or hear, why not just be open to interpretation?
Yeah.
It's no different to going to the theater and, seeing, a Shakespeare role being played by a black character or an Asian or a black actor or an Asian actor or whatever. The whole point is we are listening to the text and the dialogue and someone interpreting this character. Maybe they still have the physical attributes, but maybe the color is different. Does that really matter? Does it? So I'm all open for the possibility of doing things. Listen, I've have been cast in things that on paper were not me, were not my ethnicity, and I think those things people would never know because what's been presented in front of them is what it is. Do you know what I mean? And so I think having those opportunities are wonderful for people who would not normally have had those opportunities. Times have changed, and I do applaud. I think there's always room to grow. I think there's always room to not hold an actor back because they are gay in roles, because there's no reason why a gay man can't play a straight man in a movie or a play. There's no reason not to, unless that particular gay man doesn't feel comfortable playing that type of character. Then that's fine. That's on that actor. But if you have an actor who can play those roles, because we often get a lot of straight men playing gay roles.
It's like,
and
why can't you
it
just get
seems
a gay
easier for them
person
to
play
do that.
role?
Yeah, it seems easier that people will buy the fact that this straight actor can play a gay role or play a trans character in a show, or whatever. But when the tables are turned, acting is still acting,
Yeah.
and if a trans person is actually playing a trans role, I think they bring something else different to it. They bring an authenticity
Yeah.
to to that side of things. I do think a gay man playing a gay man, people go, well, that's not acting. He's just playing himself. But it's not it's not about that. I'm a gay man, and I have never. I'm trying to think. Have I ever played? I've not played a gay character.
Oh, you'll have to have you had any opportunity to play a gay character, or do they
I
just
have,
like, here's all the straight characters for you?
yeah. No, I have auditioned for gay roles. But and I think people, it's interesting because I think sometimes, and I don't want to paint this with too broad of a stroke. I think people in casting sometimes, and I want to be careful about how I say it, but I think when a gay character is brought up for casting, I think they have an idea sometimes, what a gay character is, and that to me, gay is such a broad spectrum
Oh yeah,
because
absolutely.
are you wanting a gay character that's effeminate or camp or that we can blatantly tell this person is gay because of how their fashion sense is, or
Yeah.
their mannerisms or whatever, or things that they say, or are we just going with the everyday? Isn't it okay to go with an everyday man who just happens to live his life? He
Yeah.
just happens to be gay.
Hmm.
But there's no sort of blanket on him that tells us that that person is gay.
Yeah.
He's only gay because he's told you he is. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I think there's elements of that when it comes to casting, but a lot of times, I just think we just need to open the door and be accepting, and give people the opportunities that they deserve and want to have.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why I like to do like drama and cosplay, is because I can put a spin on it, because I'm a trans man, and I what was it? Uh 2 days ago I celebrated my 1 year as legally being Oscar, which is great, I think. I was quite excited to do that.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I told some people that, and they're like, what do you want me to say? And I'm like, congratulations. And they're just like, yeah, but it's you. And I'm like, yeah, but I've spent 30 years being, my birth name, and now a year of being who I am. It's quite
Yes,
a big deal for,
it's
for
a
some of
big.
us,
Yes, of course, it's a big deal. Of
But I
course, it's a
think,
big deal.
I think the one thing I like, I mentioned cosplay, is that, as you said about wearing the costume, is you can be someone else. And I think that's good because, regardless of whether that character is a gay character or whatever, I bring a little bit of myself to them. And I
Sure.
think that's why I enjoy it, because it allows me to bring myself to a character that I may not get to be able to do. Like I know when I was doing the when I said about the soldiers, the guy Thomas was looking for men, like cis men, and I said, look, I'm a trans guy, can I do this role? And he said, sure, we'll open it to trans people. Didn't think about that, thank you for mentioning it. So it was good to to be able to have that opportunity and that
Yeah.
conversation. And I think, because realistically, what difference does it make, you
Yes.
know
Yeah.
so
Absolutely. And it makes none.
yeah.
It makes none. So I always think that it's just the playing field should be open, and I think that we have the opportunity to reach out to a broader spectrum
Yeah.
of people and let those people in and share,
Hmm.
because it's at the end of the day, it is still all art that we're creating,
Yeah.
and everyone has a story. Everyone's got a
Yeah.
story to tell.
I think it's just people need to actually want to listen to the stories, isn't it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
um do you have any advice for performers, from whether they've done any performing from stage to amateur, well, I say stage and pantomimes and things like that, or someone who's never done TV and film, do you have any advice for anybody getting into the industry?
My thing is ask yourself why you want to be in it.
Hmm.
Why do you want to do it? How strongly do you feel about it? Are you in it for the reasons of, because you want to be able to tell stories? I think it's an important question to ask, especially when getting into the industry, whether that's, whether you want to be an actor in voiceover or an actor on TV and film or theater. And I say that not to deter. I say it because it's not an easy industry to be in.
Yeah.
And when I say it's not easy, if you're looking to work in it, it's very competitive. It's a big spectrum, of a wide berth of in terms of the amount of people who want to be actors, who want to be and be successful at it.
Yeah.
If it's something that you want to just kind of dip your toe in and see if you like it, because that's the other aspect. Are you willing to put the work in that's required of becoming an actor? My thing is ask yourself these questions, and then if the thing is yes, I want to do it, I love it, it's all I can think of. If you can't think of anything else that you'd rather do, where it burns in like a fire in your belly to do it, by all means, go for it. Do it, do it. And learn along the way, because I've always think the most important thing that you can do for yourself is be a sponge and soak up every ounce of advice, every bit of information that is given from a teacher to a colleague, and whether you choose to take any of that on, but just listen. Listen to what there is that people have to say, and use it or don't use it, but listen. Keep your ears open, and get into a class to learn the basics of acting. Is acting 101. Just find the most beginning class of acting and get into it and find yourself. Learn to find out who you are, because the most important thing that you're ever going to be able to bring to the world of acting is knowing who you are. Mm-hmm. And because that is, in essence, every role that you will do will have an element, of yourself, or should be able to bring something of your own authenticity to a role. And because when I was young, I was always kind of thinking that it was, acting was like being like this famous person, or acting like that famous person, or trying to find. And yes, there are elements that you can take the inspiration from people like that. And you have people to aspire to or look up to, and you think, oh, that person's one of my favorite actors, and you love what they do. It's great to be inspired by these people because they help you find things within yourself. But the best thing you can ever do for yourself is to be yourself. That is the magic calling card that you have. Love who you are, love your voice, love the way you speak, love everything about you, because that is the one thing that no one else can ever be.
Well, that's very good advice. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
When you say get into acting classes, is that mostly for those who've never done acting before, or would you say for someone like me who's been acting since I was, a kid, would you also say get into an acting school, or would you say, well, you have experience, so that's more for those who've never done it before?
Well, no, listen. I still, when I can go to class, I will still pop into a class, because I feel like there is always something I can learn.
Yeah.
We do get to a place where, I have been working since I was 14 years old. I've had periods of being out of work, but I started at a very young age in theater, and sort of progressed into various sides of the industry with filming and film and TV and voiceover and theater work. I dart in and out of these things. But I think whenever I can get into a class, I go to a class. It's not always. And there's been periods where I've been working that I haven't had the time to go into class. And also classes can be, they're not cheap. A lot of good classes, and certainly out here in LA, aren't cheap. They do cost. And, people want to be able to set aside money and, go to class for a month, take, twice a week for a month or something, and see what you get out of that. And also in LA, you can monitor classes. You can actually go and observe classes before you decide to take them. And sometimes I find that very helpful because you get a sense of how that teacher works. And it also depends on what type of class you're going for. Are you going for scene study? Are you going for on camera? Are you going for how to audition on camera? Are you going for, group improvisation? There's so many things, so I would say know what it is you want to work on, and try and choose a class that specializes in that, or a teacher that specializes in it. But for someone, even if you have experience, I'm just saying there's always room to go back to a class. But if you don't have the money to do that, what I have found is get with your mates. Get with your mates and work on a scene together, and maybe film it. And let's see how we can help each other. What do you think about what I did in this? How it was, and find ways. Those are the cheaper options to find, but I think there's always a way of keeping the muscle working, because acting is a muscle, and you do have to keep it kind of stretched and flexed and all of those things. So whatever you can do to keep that momentum going, do it. But I would say to anyone wanting to get into the business, ask yourself those questions. Is this what I really want to do? Try it and find out. You might find out that you absolutely love it, because I think you have to at least get into a starting class. When you discover that's what you want to do, find out the information. Find out how it all works. A theater class is great because you learn what it's like to be on stage. You learn what it's like to work with your own body, how your body moves, physicality. All these things come into play. How you carry yourself, whether that's on stage or whether that's on TV and film. We've got to know our bodies. Get in tune with how your body works. So listen, I'm all for people who want to open the door and step into the void of acting, and because there's so much that you can do. There's so much that you can express in telling stories. So I would never deter anyone, but I will ask you to ask yourself the questions, and be prepared. It's work. It is a lot of work. But it can be incredibly rewarding.
I get that.
To do it.
You said you started when you were 14. So can you remember your first role? And importantly, what made you decide you wanted to get into acting? Was it that particular role? Was it a school role, or did you just think, yes, this is exactly what I want to do, and you've just not, as you said, you had a desire and a burning sensation to do it?
Yeah, I think it's always kind of been in me, and I don't know if it's in a part of me thinks part of that is been in my DNA, and that's another story because that's a different connection to me. But when I started at 14, I had my first summer job was with a summer theater arts program, and the city paid. I got my first professional job being paid to do a theater production, and I did this show, and I was in the ensemble of a musical, and it was my first step into doing theater and being paid for it, and it was absolutely it took me over. It just took me over to be in a rehearsal room with people and learning stuff and learning choreography and having a blast and laughing and talking and finding these ways. And in between those things, we would also do acting classes. So I felt like I was getting everything. And at the time, not realizing how valuable this was to a 14-year-old. And then also, I didn't live very far from my local community theater in Canton, Ohio, which at the time I didn't also know was something that was available to me to go and be a
Yeah.
part of, which I then did. Um, and so I was doing roles at the community theater, which was semi-professional as well, and then getting roles that I, playing the leading player in Pippin, and doing these roles and being the ensemble of other shows, and then also getting an internship by working backstage. That I was also being paid for. I could work and learn how it worked backstage. I was building sets. I was doing construction and lighting, all this stuff. When I think about it now and I look back over, I think, God, I really got a leg up
Yeah.
into learning how the theater and stuff works. And of course, then I became a ballet dancer, and I was working with the ballet company, which was connected to the theater. And,
Yeah.
so all of that stuff was on my doorstep, so I was incredibly, incredibly fortunate, to be able to do all of that stuff. And so I don't know. I think it's, the journey for me is very different to a lot of people in terms of how I got started. But at that age, it was the beginning, and that passion just grew and grew and grew because I was able to kind of have that access to those things, and not everybody does. But I also, it came at me through a side window because it was only through word of mouth, through another school friend who told me about certain things and dancing and this, that, and the other, that I kind of thought, oh, but I kind of want to do that. Because I used to go out and dance in the backyard just from stuff that I'd seen on TV. I used to watch Fame, the TV series back in the 80s and stuff. And, I was obsessed with dancing. I was obsessed with singing. I was obsessed with just performing, and stuff. And there were times where, I was scared of certain things, but at the same time, there was something that just kept driving me to do it, and New York was a place that was always in the forefront of my mind, thinking that someday I'm going to have to move to New York, and I'm going to have to, live and work and try and do Broadway, or am I going to dance in a ballet? It was just everything. I just wanted everything, and I did a little bit of everything.
Well, that's good. So, Matt was saying that he said he would like you to be in Waiting for Godot and would like to appear across you from that. So do you have any thoughts on that at all?
Bring it to me. And it's funny because I would love to do. I keep saying to my husband, it's like, yeah, I haven't been on stage in since 2015 doing a musical. And so I always say that I'd love to get back on stage again because it is my roots. It's where I started. And tell Matt, I'm open to that. It would be a challenge for me getting back on stage. But I always say I want to go back and I'd love to do a good play. Maybe come back to the West End or go to New York and do a play. So I'm putting that out there. There's a few things that I would love to, kind of dip my toe and stuff back into. Tell Matt, let's make it happen.
Absolutely. So we've spoken about obviously your theatre background, your TV, film, games. Is there anything you haven't done that you want to do? And do you have a dream role?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I have, if I think about it, I feel like I have touched, in my years, have touched on everything between theater, film, television, video games, voiceovers. I even modeled. I was a classical ballet dancer. I've done Broadway. I've done West End.
Wow.
I think, and I was a pop star at one point.
Radio. Have you done radio?
Radio. I've only done radio commercials, but I haven't done like radio plays.
Oh, well, there you go. That's another thing.
So there's another thing.
I bet your CV is just chock full of every single role you've done. Yeah.
you know. But it's funny because I don't. Looking back over it, it's not until I have moments like this where I speak to people, because I kind of. I'm aware of the stuff and the work that I've done, but at the moment I'm always living in the present moment of trying to, and so I forget about a lot of stuff that has,
Yeah.
if I have to trace it all back, I'd be like, even I'm like, oh, that's a lot. I have been around for a while, so I imagine, yeah, but it doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like there's been a lot of work in the past, even though I know there has been. That may
Yeah.
sound a bit strange, but because the past is the past. I've done some wonderful, wonderful work with people in shows over the years, and I've enjoyed everything about it.
Hmm.
But in terms of, is there something that I would want to do? I'm always looking for something. I'm always looking for that vehicle, and I never put a time limit on myself. We get older, roles come along, and some roles, it's interesting because I'm at a place in my life now where, I'm the right age for a lot of roles that are out there, but sometimes people don't think my look matches the age that they're looking for. So I have to battle with those aspects of things as well.
Yeah. Oh,
But I'm like, in this day, there's a cat.
yeah, it's
Uh,
Loki.
Loki.
If you'll come
Hello,
and say
Loki.
hi. Oh, come and say hi. Loki. There we go. Hi,
Oh my gosh, gorgeous.
my
Gorgeous.
baby. He's whining because he wants his food, but he has an hour to go yet. Okay, you
Oh,
can come.
gotcha. Strict,
Yes,
strict.
I keep
That's
him on a
good.
strict routine, but yeah. But I
That's
thought
good.
I thought you'd like to see Loki.
Yeah, thank you for that.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
But yeah, it's an interesting one. And I'm just open to roles that come along. Like I said, I'd love to go and do a play again. And theater's hard work. It's hard work.
Yeah.
8 shows a week. It's hard work. And as far as anything out there in particular, I don't know. I'd love to originate something, or maybe there was a character that Sidney Poitier had done, and I put this out there before. Mr. Tibbs was a character. I think he was a detective, and I thought, oh, that'd be interesting to do like a remake and bring
Hmm.
that back. Do you know what I mean? It's just something different, But who knows? You know
Yeah.
what? I'm just open.
Well,
I'm,
that's good.
yeah.
Do you have, is there any, well, I kind of touched on this. Is there a dream role? Like, if you could say, I really want to, I know you mentioned Mr. Tibbs, but is there any role that you think I would really like to be a part of that?
Uh, yes. I mean, there is. I'm always happy to. I love action stuff, but I love those types of characters that are in the action movies. They don't necessarily have to be. They're not fighting all the time
Hmm.
or anything like that. But I love Marvel characters. I
Oh, you
love,
love
love.
Marvel.
Oh yeah, I'd love to be something in the Marvel universe. Uh, even DC. I love all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm very much, I love the fantasy. I love the idea of playing, a king in something,
Mm,
in whether that's sci-fi, fantasy world kind of thing.
yeah.
But I love it, and I love the idea of doing roles from video games that might be. They've talked about Death Stranding, doing an action film. It's a different
Wow.
story, being a different story, and I don't know if my particular character would appear, but I would love being to be a part of it, and maybe
Yeah.
necessarily a different character. Uh,
Yeah.
because there have been those things I've seen. I know there are people who've done roles in like The Last of Us who have played characters in them that they didn't play originally.
Yeah. Well, so
So
it's like a Troy Baker is one of David's henchmen, and he's Joel in the video game,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is a
yeah.
completely different role. He's gone from a good
Absolutely.
guy to a villain. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I love the idea of stuff like that. So, but yeah, I don't really have, there have been times with certain characters have crossed my mind, and I also know that they, there are characters that I like that I think maybe the time has passed for me to be able to play due to, that character's a lot younger, or the character, if there's an older version of that character and they decide to do a story based on that, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
You know, so I just try to remain open. And at the moment, I'm auditioning, sending tapes in, and hopefully seeing what the next thing is that lands. I've got a few things coming out that I'm excited about that I would love to mention, but it's so top secret right now.
Yeah. Signed your NDAs.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think it's and to be fair, it is one of those worlds that I got to be a part of that I'm very excited about. And I can't wait for people to, I think it'll be very exciting for people to see. So,
now I know that you're in LA,
yes.
as you've mentioned that. So I have a question. I'm aware there were some fires in LA, so I would just like to ask how you and your family are doing about that, and how the community is going on after that.
Yeah, that was crazy. That it's been a year now, and the devastation that has been left behind from that is kind of now been. Not long ago, we took a drive down the Pacific Coast Highway along Malibu area and everything, and had a look because it had been closed for quite some time, but now it's open, and it was crazy to actually see how much had been devastated along the way. And I happened to be in Dublin during those fires, and my husband was over as well. I was filming The Rainmaker in Dublin at the time the fires were happening. So fortunately, we were out of the country during it, but we kept tabs on it, and we had the app. We had an app on our phone that was able to download, so it showed you where the fire was, where it was spreading, where the evacuation point. It was so detailed. And fortunately, at one point, I think our area was going to be evacuated, but it didn't. So we're grateful for that. But it was, I mean, I think at one point there was 5 different fires going. It was, I'd never, ever, we get fires every year. It just happens. But this was something that was just absolutely devastating. The amount of homes lost and lives and things that people, spent their entire lives building and, trying to get themselves back on track. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. And hopefully that doesn't happen again. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. But thank you for asking. I think, it takes time. People are rebuilding, and trying to get their lives and stuff back on track. And I think there's been help, with people, funds set up and things like that, and I think people are, finding their way back.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you did all right, and that people are rebuilding now, which is good. Yeah. I know recently, I think it was 2 weeks ago, because I live near a river called the Avon Lloyd. Wow. Okay. The Avon Lwyd, I think, is the Welsh thing, and we also have something called the Boating Lake, and they do rise, and I think a couple of weeks ago that area flooded very badly. Wow. Thankfully, I'm in an upstairs flat, so I wasn't affected, but I don't know if any homes were affected, but I do know that where I am, there is a river that tends to flood a lot. So.
Right. Yeah. And well, and we also, it's crazy because we either deal with the earthquakes, we either deal with the fires, or once in a while, because we don't get that much rain, but we've had weeks of torrential rain.
Oh, wow.
in LA. And the problem with that is that because, we have the Hollywood Hills and we're surrounded by mountains, we get mudslides.
Oh.
So we get that devastation of mudslides washing homes away. That's how drastic that is. It gets very biblical.
Yeah.
So there's always something to contend with. But we did have quite a few bad moments with rain. And it's been great. What's wonderful about it is that for vegetation, it's the whole hillside becomes green because LA gets such not a great amount of rain. So the hills can look a little dry sometimes, you know what I mean, for the most part. But when it rains, it did 3 days of solid rain. The entire landscape just goes green. It's incredible.
Wow.
It's incredible. Yeah. So we are no longer in a drought, I was told not long ago. So
well, that's good. Yeah. I know we had a couple of heat waves, and at one point we had hose pipe bans, and I'm like, but why? You're in the UK. Why do we have hose pipe bans in the UK? Because that was our drought. Several years ago, but
that's crazy.
My cat has zoomies now. What I was just going to ask, the last question, going back to mocap, is that what do people misunderstand about it? I feel like we've kind of touched on that. It's like, well, I know my misunderstanding is that it's not all ping pong balls now, even though that's the thing that it was. But do you think there's anything that people misunderstand about mocap? And
I don't know. I've never had anyone question what they don't understand about it. I think people are clear in terms of, for those people who don't play video games, I think people now understand it more because those people who watch movies, things like Avatar or Lord of the Rings or any of those, Andy Serkis doing that
was great performance, that.
Yeah, absolutely. Also motion capture. So people now get a sense of how those things are done.
Absolutely,
If they don't play video games, at least they will now understood it when you see behind the scenes of some of those productions from the film aspect. So I think people probably have a better understanding of it and know the difference between what is actual real footage and what's
like CGI and stuff.
CGI, yeah. And also technology, like I said, is now in a place where people are starting to understand it more, certainly with AI, and people are kind of,
I think it's also it's really interesting, the process, how things were computer generated, CGI, and then through to mocap. And even if you look at video games now, I remember I saw the trailer for Cyberpunk, and I just was absolutely mind blown that it was Keanu Reeves, and it was like with the Call of Duty and like Kevin Spacey and stuff. And for me, because I grew up with PS2 and Xbox 360, and then I saw these trailers, and I thought, how are they like actual people now? And it's just it's fantastic how the technology has gone. And you can probably say that with your own work, you've probably looked at and gone, what you do now is so much different to what you did back then.
Oh my gosh. Listen, I remember the first time that I, not only with the mocap, but with the scanning, I remember looking at it because they do use my actual face. It's my likeness in the game. And when I've seen it generated on this platform, I'm like, wow. That's undeniably me.
Yeah. You probably look at it and go, oh, I didn't realize a freckle there.
Yeah. They literally capture every nook and cranny of it. So
it's probably very uncanny the first time you see it and you think, wait, that's actually me.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also to see it, how things have been layered on top of it, how they, put the costume on you, because you don't have any of that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And so, or the mask and all that sort of stuff. So interesting, really, really interesting.
Just a few more questions, if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite role or favorite game of yours?
Uh, a favorite role. Um, I feel like none of them. I don't really have a favorite one. I enjoyed the mayor in Wednesday, um, but I think there's been a couple of just recently playing Prince Thomas in The Rainmaker,
Yeah.
which is based off of John Grisham's book. I love that role because it's also a role that in which I don't normally get cast at, believe it or not,
Yeah.
playing a slightly sort of good-hearted thug, if you will.
Ooh.
Um, and his demeanor. He's got this really huge diamond earring and a couple of gold chains and watches, but he wears like a leather jacket, and he's just cool. He really
Yeah.
is just cool. But he owns a bar, and I really to date is probably one of my favorite roles that I've done. I
Hmm.
do have one coming up that I'm very also excited about.
Yeah.
So I have a few that I really like, but I suppose Prince at the moment has probably been my favorite to date.
Hmm.
And yeah, yeah. I mean, I love all the characters that I get to play.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love them all. Some are a little more in depth than others, but very different. Um, uh, but I think I liked Prince because it was one of the roles that I never often get the opportunity to play, and for that I really liked.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Do you ever like look back at previous roles and think, "Oh, I've changed so much," or are you one of these people that don't look at previous? Because I'm aware that there are some people that do not look at anything. They do their acting, it goes out, they see the premiere, and then they're like, "Okay, I never want to see myself in that again," and they just avoid everything they've been in.
Yeah,
So
and it's interesting because uh, I don't. It's not that I avoid it, but I don't. Oh, I mean, to be fair, once I've done the project, um, I will like I watched the episodes of The Rainmaker.
mhm.
I tend to what I watched Wednesday, but I do let them go. I don't
Mhm.
necessarily obsess over them. I will post clips or photos from behind the scenes, over a period of time on my Instagram or whatever my social medias, mainly for fans to get a chance to see stuff that they might not
Yeah.
have been able to see before or whatever, and sometimes just to keep in touch with people. Like I think I posted a picture from Wednesday not long ago on my Instagram, and just to touch base with people
Uh-huh.
because my Instagram is really or my social media is kind of just, it's me, but it is work related, so
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who follow me purely for Death Stranding. There are a lot of people who follow purely because of Wednesday. There are a lot of people who follow purely because of my theater or music background from the past, or whatever. So not everyone likes everything that
Yeah.
I do because they're there for different reasons. And I kind of like that because it just kind of goes, I know the people who engage with certain things that I post are the fans of that type of work that I do.
Hmm.
So it's not necessarily dedicated to just me as myself. It's kind of got me as myself as along with everything
Yeah.
else,
Fair enough.
but yeah, but I don't think I necessarily go back. It's funny because someone asked once about doing voice work, and I've never really been necessarily a fan of my voice, which is interesting considering I've made a career with it. But it's and I don't mean that in a way that I hate it. It's like it's like when I listen to you leave a voicemail or a
Yeah.
voice message for someone and you hear yourself back and you're like, oh God, I can't stand the sound of my voice. I don't like the way I sound. It's just always been one of those things. Um,
Hmm.
you know, but I'm always complimented on my voice, which I'm very grateful for. I think the fact that people like it enough to hire it.
Yeah. But it's a
You
very
know,
nice. It's a very nice voice. It's you've
they,
got a very nice, calm voice. So yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you. But yes, like anything, I suppose it's like people. We act, but we don't want to see ourselves because for us, it's like as long as I can do the role and I'm telling the story, I don't need to necessarily look at myself. But some people like to look at for technical reasons when it comes to
Yeah.
film. There's been a lot of shows where I've worked on that I don't, you know, sometimes you film a scene and you can go and look at the playback of it, or whatever. And I don't often do that. I trust in the process of what I'm doing, unless there's something technical that I'm not hitting, or there's a mark or a framing thing that I might be slightly out of, and I might be missing it and can't understand why that's happening or whatever.
Yeah.
Then I'll go and maybe talk to the director, look at the playback and see, oh, I see what you mean. Now I can see it, and then go back
Yeah.
and fix it in another take or something. But in terms of the performance wise, unless I like to trust the eyes of the director who's watching it intently, who knows the character, who knows the story, and if they say that was the one, that's it, you got it. I like to trust them because I don't want to go and do something and be change the performance based on the fact that I didn't like the way I did my head tilt, or
Yeah.
I didn't like the way, you know, my shoulders came up when I said that line, because I think those things are just stupid. I feel like things happen organically because that's how they're meant to happen, and that
Yeah.
is you know, being in the moment of it. So I don't want to try and change something because I didn't like the way it looked, because other people are seeing it for the first time, and if people are being moved by what you've done or how you're telling the story, that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I get that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I realise we've had almost 2 hours. 2 hour conversation. That's been all right, isn't it?
There you go. We've done good.
Thank you. Do you have anything else to ask me before we wrap up, or are you good?
I think I'm good. I think we've kind of hit on some great points. And no, I'm good. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's been fantastic to talk to you, and I've learned so much. Thank you very much for the advice as well.
Sure,
And,
sure.
yeah, I wish you luck with all of your future projects, and
Thank
hope
you.
everything goes well and for you and stuff like that.
Well, and do you have a channel that you?
I do have a YouTube channel specifically for this podcast.
Okay, I'll check that out.
I'm also on Instagram as well.
Oh, okay.
But I've got a personal Instagram, and then I've got one for virtual photography, because I'm a virtual photographer, which is basically taking photos of the games.
Okay. Do we follow each other?
I don't know. I will have a look now. I will go on my actual, instead of my VP one, I'll go on my actual one.
Okay. What is it?
Oh, I've got you. You're verified, so that's fine. It should come up as Oscar the Viking. If it works. I just clicked follow now.
Oh, you did? Okay, let me just see.
But yeah, the YouTube for this one is just called A Gaymer Meets, but I can send you the link and stuff. And obviously I'll edit this and send you the edited version so you can have a look at that if you would like.
Sure. Okay. Okay, I've got
Thank you very much for following me back. That's an honor.
Oh, of course. Of course.
Thank
I
you.
think we've gotten to know each other enough there.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Wasn't actually expecting you to follow back, so thank you so much.
Of course. Of course.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
I will.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I will let you crack on with your day. What time is it for you now there?
It is now 11:45.
Oof.
Afternoon.
Oh my goodness me, it's nearly 8 p.m. for me.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm glad Matt came in and fixed it. And I because I messaged him and I said it's not going to cut off after an hour, is it? And he said no,
Right.
it should be fine.
Right.
Because I was worried that it was just going to cut off mid conversation, but yeah.
Right. No worries. No worries.
Well, thank you very much for joining me, and I
You're
hope you have
welcome.
a very good day and the rest of the week as well. So
Thank you so much, Oscar. Thank you very, very, very much. And all the best with everything. Keep going. Stay authentic. Love your work.
thank you.
Keep it all up.
Thank you, Tommy.